Hey everyone, Xavier here, and welcome to the very first episode of Real Talk, the Cyber Club's interview series. In this episode, we talk to Thomas Brown. Thomas is a senior cybersecurity engineer by day and a cybersecurity career blogger by night at cybertommy.com. He holds multiple degrees such as a bachelor's in information systems, a master's in business administration, and a master's in cybersecurity. On top of his degrees, he's also Security Plus, CISSP, and CAPM certified. In this episode, Thomas and I discuss his work experience before IT, his eventual transition into information technology, his career aspirations, and advice for those wanting to enter the field. Thomas also enjoys mentoring other information technology professionals and encourages mentees to contact him via Instagram at cyber.tommy. Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you guys enjoy the show. Thank you. So take me back to high school. What was Thomas in a high school like?
Yeah, man, the Thomas you see like today is not the Thomas back then, right?
Right.
You know, tech was really not, a part of me growing up, right? It just wasn't, I didn't get my first computer until I was like, I want to say like 16, right? And this was back in like 2001, right? So, I'm an old guy.
Yeah.
And tech just wasn't big for me. So, being here today is like, wow, because if you would have asked me like when I was like 15, like what are you going to be? Tech would have been anywhere inside the conversation.
Right. So what role did that computer really play in your life? Was it just kind of like a hobbyist thing, just kind of doing homework? How did that first computer
I don't say it was a hobby. I got it because my school like really took a shift from like pen and paper, right, to actually, all right, you have to type a report now. So that forced my parents to actually buy me a computer, and like I did feel some type of connection to it, right? But I just really didn't know then, how vital, technology would play in my life at that point. I just knew it was a computer and I use it to do homework.
Okay, awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
That's not a bad start. At least you learned a little bit about it before you actually got into it.
Right.
So you're a veteran. You spent nearly or maybe even over a decade in the Army. Is that when you got your first interest in technology, or did it come before or after that?
Actually, no.
Oh, really?
It came, yeah. Well, it came towards the end of my career, right? So I thought I was going to be a lifer, right? I thought I would retire, I thought that, like once I got out of high school, because I joined right out of high school, because that was like my only option really, So I thought, all right, I'm gonna retire, I'm gonna be here forever, right?
Right.
But I think around 2009, as I started to mature, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be in the military forever. This is not something that I want to do forever. Right. And that's when I was like, all right, so if you do get out the military, what are you going to do? Right. And so I did a quick search on the net, right, for like careers of the future. And, something stuck out to me. It was something called information assurance. And I was like, what is information assurance? So I started to research, that more. And as I started to go deeper into it, then I discovered hacking. I discovered cybersecurity. And I was like, all right, this is something that I might want to do in the future. So I enrolled in a degree program and I haven't looked back.
And how far into your career, your Army career, until you made that choice?
This was probably year, I would say it was probably year seven. Let me see. I joined in 2003. So it's about year 6 or 7.
Okay.
When I was like, okay, this is not for me. Now
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
at that point in your career, you're usually a lifer, right? It's
Right.
like
Right.
you're staying in forever because
Mhm.
if you hit that year 4 mark or that year 5 mark, it's like,
Mhm.
you know,
Might as well retire. Yeah. Get a
yeah,
nice pension.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. That's cool. So, as you know, I'm in a transitional period going from one career to another, the same way you did back then. How was that transition for you from going from all these leadership roles in the Army into getting a new start into IT? How did that go for you?
Bad. It was not easy. I'm going to tell you, it
Okay.
was not easy. So
Mm,
as I said, around 2009, I started to like think, all right, it's time to, start preparing for when I do get out the army,
mm,
right? I didn't actually get out the army until like 2015, right?
mm.
So
Okay.
like, 5 to 6 years later.
Mm,
Um, and, I was able to finish my degree, right before I got out the army.
mm,
And I was like, all right, cool. I have a degree.
mm,
I have a plan. Let's do it. Right.
mm.
It was just not that easy. I
Yeah.
applied for hundreds of jobs and I was just
Wow.
getting no traction, nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So,
Yeah.
how long do you think it took you to get your first help desk role? How long do you think it took?
I want to say I got on 2015. I think my
Mm,
first help desk role was in 2016. So
wow.
about a year and a half probably that it actually took me to land that role. And that
Mm.
role was all about luck, really.
Okay, okay. That's awesome, man. That's a persistence, applying for a whole year and waiting it out. That's awesome, man. I
Just
respect it.
hitting submit and just waiting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand that. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. So you said it
hmm
took you about a year to get your first role. How
hmm
did some of your early first roles out of the military go?
hmm So I don't know if you have experience in the
Mm,
help desk, right? But
mm.
it's
I
not a
do.
place that.
I'm sorry to
Oh,
cut you off.
okay.
I'm currently in the help desk.
Mhm.
Yes. Mm,
All right. So you probably can see where I'm probably coming from, right? It's like it's not a
mm,
place that I would like to go back to. Um, I actually did end up back there, but that's for a different story.
mm,
Uh, so the first help desk role I got, and brand new to tech, right? My
mm,
first tech job,
mm,
no experience, all right.
mm.
And I go in there like, all right, what am I doing here? Like I'm here to
Mm,
do cyber, but I'm at the help desk. So
mm,
I had to just learn it, man. I had to
mm,
just open a book, get like an A+ book and just learn, just
mm.
learn the basics because I had, the cyber part down. I just didn't have those basics, right? Like how to change an IP address, right?
Mm,
Like how to change a password. Like I
right.
didn't know any of that, right? So I
Yeah.
had to learn all that while I was actually on the job.
Mm. Okay, awesome. So I like that you already went into the help desk role wanting to get into cybersecurity.
Mhm.
Even though back then in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, it was called information assurance. So that's awesome that while you're in college and outside of getting out of the military, you navigated around there. So that's awesome to hear, man. That's awesome. So
Thank you.
I know that now you're in a senior cybersecurity engineering role.
Mhm.
You lead a team. How does leadership and IT really differ compared to the military? What are your strengths you found? What are the weaknesses you found? Could you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. It's drastically different.
Okay.
Now, just to put this into perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
I work for a contracting company and we contract for the government,
Mm-hmm.
right? Actually, we contract for the military, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in the military, things are more structured, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's times, right? If
Mm-hmm.
like you have to be at work, at
Mm-hmm.
this time, right? And if you're
Mm-hmm.
not there at this time, then there's a
Yeah.
consequences, right?
Yeah. Push ups,
You
sit ups,
know,
all that. Yeah.
all the above, all the above. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So my how I led in the army,
Mm-hmm.
was I led by control, right? in a sense, right? Because like you have to have like control of your environment, but I also led with compassion, right? I was not, always that guy who's like, hey, do this, and that. No, like I was able, to build rapport with my soldiers, but I was able still to have that control that I needed to command troops, right? Transfer that to what I do now, right? It's a more relaxed environment. Like it's like an actual tech environment, like there's no yelling, there's no screaming, there's no, hey, you better be here at, X hour, right? Like we actually, you know, we don't have like a set time where we actually have to be into work, as long as things are done, as long as our tasks are complete, and we work, our set time, it's a pretty relaxed environment. I do say, it's a bit more politicking going on because I work with, very, with a diverse team, of, like of a skill sets, right? And each person on the team, does a particular function, right? And even outside the team, right? When we have to like politic for resources, right? And like for people, so I think, in this particular role, I am, more of I'm just more of, a regular person. I don't even consider myself a leader, right? Because we all, it's, we all are on the same team. I own, so you know what? No, I'm more of like a project manager, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm more like a project manager, right? I assign resources, right? I make sure, tasks are complete, when they are supposed to be complete, but I also work as well. So, so yeah.
Okay, I like that. That kind of segues into my next question. I found this while looking at, at I guess future positions for myself once I get further into my college career. It
Mhm.
seems like cybersecurity engineer is more of like an umbrella term. So, in your words, you've been in this position for a little while now. Could you define what a senior cybersecurity is, and could you kind of break down cybersecurity engineer? I'm sorry. Can you kind of
Mhm.
break down those tasks and responsibilities throughout the day?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I go into, depth with that particular question,
Mhm.
um, I will have to say this, that I can only speak for
Yourself.
the government contracting side, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't really know how, it is in the private sector because, most of my cyber experience is for the government, right?
Mhm.
But I will say this, that there is a kind of an issue that we face, right? When
Mhm.
it comes to coming up with these job titles.
Right.
For example, I worked in a company as a cybersecurity analyst.
Mhm.
I worked in a company as an ISSO,
Mhm.
right? And now I'm a cybersecurity engineer, right? um, and I will tell you that each of those different, names for positions or titles are they kind
Mhm.
of do similar things, right?
Mhm.
So in this particular realm, you can have a name,
Mhm.
any name you want, but you're probably doing the same thing, right? You're probably
Right.
working within the RMF framework and you're doing
Mhm.
something within the RMF framework,
Mhm.
So, but the term cybersecurity engineer, as it relates to me, is I more so build controls
Mhm.
into the system development lifecycle, right?
Mhm.
Back before the before I got into cyber,
Mhm.
um, companies would build systems and then they would layer controls on top of the systems.
Mhm.
Right now there's a big push for, hey, we build systems and controls at the same time,
Mhm.
right? Like through each stage of the system development lifecycle, there are controls that are built into each stage. So that's pretty much what I do now. Like from the start of the system to when the system is decommissioned, I make sure that there are controls in place to keep that particular system secure. Another thing that I do is I'm more on the continuous monitoring side, right? So I review vulnerability scans, I review compliance scans, I determine what needs to be fixed. I write the code to fix it. I then test that code, and then I write a report, and then I release that code to the customer.
Okay. Wow. Awesome. Thanks for the in-depth. When I read engineer, I didn't expect all that. So that's good to know to expect for the future. It's also good for our viewers too. Yes, sir. So I know your next goal is to get even further into leadership, like a CISO or maybe even a CIO. Could you express to our listeners a little bit about your steps to your next role?
Yeah. So right now, I'm really trying to focus on really getting my next role in a more of a managerial type capacity, right? I'm really because though I lead my particular project, I'm not considered a manager, right?
Kind of like a team lead almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So I would like to have that title and those, and those managerial responsibilities. And, I think that will really help me, pivot, into the role that I see myself attaining down the road.
Okay, awesome. And does that contain maybe doing that for another company or even creating your own company for yourself?
That's actually a very good question because I think you and I talked about this. I'm currently in the process of starting my own company, right? And and I would like to do it, to be, to have that role in my company, but I would have to take on a more, it's my company, right? So me doing like these mundane cybersecurity tasks would probably be not the best, thing for me, right? That's something that I would probably have to like, hire someone else to do. But before I really launch my company, I would hope to do it within the company I'm in now. It's a very large company. And
Very large. I can't say it on here, but it's massive.
Yeah, it's massive. But if an opportunity comes along that I can do it in another company, then it's something that I would consider.
Okay, awesome. That's good to know, man. Look forward to it, and hopefully, we make that transition. We get you back on and talk about all the money you're making. Okay.
Man, is it way more than now? Then wow.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. So
That'd be great.
I'd like to go and transition into advice for students or even enthusiasts. Podcast is hosted by me, a college student, and my good friend Aries, also a college student. So to segue into that, I was looking over your LinkedIn the other day, and I noticed that you didn't test and pass for your Security Plus until 1 year after your very first bachelor's degree. Was that a conscious decision? And if so, why did you wait to pursue certifications?
Uh, that was kind of a mistake.
Okay.
And it was more so a mistake, right? I planned to get all my certs once I was done with school, right? There was a brief period in my life, like the last year of me being in the Army. I was like, am I really ready to get out of the Army, right? So I was kind of going back and forth, I was kind of going back and forth and still trying to finish my degree. And people were like saying, "Hey, you should just sign back up. The Army is an easy life. Blah 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 blah." So there was a brief period where I was like, "All right, I might stay in." Obviously, I didn't, right? So fast forward, I got out. I was like, "All right, it's time to study for my certs," right? but I had actually went directly into my MBA program. So I didn't have time to study for my certs, right? So it was like I got out of the Army, I went directly into my MBA program. Um, and the only reason why I got my Security Plus was because my first help desk job, they said, hey, if you want this job, you need to get the Security Plus.
Kind of forced.
That's why, that's why I got it. I studied for about 2 weeks and like hard, like all day, all day, all day. And I took it, passed it, and that's how I got that job. So if you see the date I got my cert and then you see the date I got my very first job, they will pretty much line up perfectly.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess looking at that, in hindsight, what is your opinion on certifications, degrees, doing them simultaneously? If you can go back and tell younger Thomas, hey, this is what you should do, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself, focus on your degree. Get your, make sure you get good grades, because I almost did not get accepted into my master's of cybersecurity degree because it was like my GPA was kind of borderline, right? So yeah, so I like, focus on that, but still have a plan, a solid plan to get those certs, right? Make sure you go back and get those certs. There are still certs that I still need to attain, but they're not for me though. They're for when I start my company. But any advice I would tell people is that go after the certs that relates to what you want to do, right? Don't go after any cert just because, right? I mean, it's cool to have like this long list of names behind your name, but like, can you actually, do what those particular certs validate, right? So, and that's why the only certs that I have now are things that I can do and that I can do well.
Okay. So we know that cybersecurity is like we said earlier, an umbrella term. So I guess would you say the second part of advice to that is try to find your niche early on? Maybe early on in your career, say, okay, let me dedicate myself to becoming a pen tester or something else. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Yes, I would. I would. Okay. I would say, and that's why I always tell people the first thing that you should do as a cybersecurity professional or an aspiring cybersecurity professional, right, is to get a foundation in ethical hacking, right? And I tell people this because even to this day, like I don't perform any ethical hacking tasks, but I draw back on that knowledge when I am writing a security control, when I am reviewing a security control, when I am trying to convey why this security control is important. I draw back on my foundation of, me aspiring to be a hacker, right? So I truly think that the foundation of any cybersecurity professional should be a good understanding of how attacks happen, right?
Yeah, I found it interesting. Actually, I had a good conversation with a few other classmates, and a lot of them actually got a lot of their red team or offensive certs before the blue team certs. They're getting the pen test plus before the CYSA, and then once they get the pen test plus, they can fly right through it. I had the misconception, of blue team first and red team, but it's funny how those things change as you continue your education. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. So speaking of misconceptions, can you give us some of the biggest misconceptions of the industry that you've encountered thus far?
Absolutely. Get a degree and you're good.
Okay.
Yeah. Clearly, that was so wrong, right? When I was getting my degree, all the professors was like, "Hey, man, once you get this degree, you can get any job you want." That was so not the case, right?
Yeah.
It took a lot more work to actually get my job outside of just having a degree. Another misconception that I found was that, before I, landed my first job, I thought that, like I had to be like an expert, in like everything and like everything cybersecurity. And what I found is that, like companies really look for people who they can teach, right? Rather than them like knowing like everything under the sun, right? That's
Right.
just not possible. And I tried that. I tried to be like this super cybersecurity guy, learn about hacking, learn about incident response, learn about forensics. I tried to do all that, and it just did not work, right? So yeah, so like you don't have to know it all. You just have to know something, right?
Right. And try to, somewhat master or be at least consistent on one thing. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
'Cause just looking at my coursework for my bachelor's degree, it takes you all over the place. So it's gonna be kind of interesting to see where to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really funny you said that
Mm,
because when I was getting my bachelor's and then when I transitioned to my master's in cybersecurity,
mm,
I was able to focus more on one particular thing when I got my master's as
mm,
opposed to my bachelor's. It was like all over the place, and
mm,
I was not able to like master one particular domain,
mm,
right? So, and when I got my master's, I was able to, really hone in, on, all right, vulnerability management, right?
mm,
That's what I do. Like that's key, right? That was my particular specialty, and actually, that's still my specialty to this day.
mm. Okay. Okay. So you're in a pretty advanced role, senior role. What do you do nowadays to maintain your knowledge and even further your education? Do you still, I see in the background you have books there. What are the resources you might,
Oh
use to
yeah. Mhm.
keep that going?
Yeah. So I read more. I read a
Mm,
lot.
mm,
It's funny because I didn't read a lot when I was getting my master's because I was just really trying to like get the assignments done, that I really did not have a chance to like sit down and just like read every single word.
mm,
But now I read more. I read books on like general cybersecurity topics. I read
mm,
books on how cybersecurity relates to, on like an international scale, with
mm,
nation states and things like that. Also, if you go to my bio on my IG, there is a link there,
mm,
and inside that link, it's a list of resources that I still use like to this day. But my job actually has a very extensive bank of classes and
mm,
books that I use. And also because I'm a veteran, we actually have this site called Fed BTE
mm,
that has a lot of cybersecurity classes that relates to the NIST framework or the
mm,
cybersecurity framework rather.
mm. Okay, awesome. That's good to know. That's going to be good for people trying to make the transition too. People have to understand IT and cybersecurity is a lifelong learning journey until you retire. So that's good to know that you read more. A lot of people don't like to read. That's a little reassuring for
Yeah.
non-readers.
No, yeah, like I had to like, all right, let's start reading. Like I read
Mm,
like two books like a month now. So,
wow,
that's
that's
key.
good.
Yeah.
And those books aren't small, I bet.
Yeah, well, that there is my current selection right there.
Mm,
Actually, I'm actually trying to develop my Python skills a bit
mm,
more because for my job, that's what I do. Like I write Bash and I write Python, right? So,
mm.
those are those two things that I'm really trying to master right now.
All right, awesome. Good to know. Good to know. All right, so I have two more questions for you before you wrap it
Mhm,
up. So say that I came to you just one day out of the blue, say, "Hey,
mhm.
5 years from now, I want your job. Give me the roadmap." What advice would you give me to make it to your current position as a senior cybersecurity engineer?
Yeah. So, um, you know, I kind of fell into this particular role or
Mm,
this particular
mm,
sector.
mm,
But one thing that I used to get here is I really looked at where the industry was going, and I try to, map out my skill set, in that direction. But on the flip side, I will tell you that if you really are trying to, become a security engineer, specifically for the government, right? Learn the tools that they use. For example, Nessus, we use Nessus heavy. That's like our main vulnerability scanning tool, and that's one that I have been using since I was able to pivot to cyber. And also learn compliance, right? Learn how to answer a security control, learn how to do a self-assessment, right? When you learn how to, do a self-assessment and answer a security control and then speak to how you, will build that cybersecurity control into a system, then you're starting to think, like a cybersecurity engineer, because you're now building controls and you're now thinking about, all right, well, I have this particular system, we are currently designing it. How does security fit into that system?
Right. Okay. Awesome. That's a great advice for anybody that might be interested. I'm still trying to decide, so I'm not going to say I'm going to take that roadmap. And I appreciate you giving the listeners that.
Yeah.
So finally, let the listeners know where we can find you on Instagram, YouTube, your website, cybertommy.com. Could you give us a little rundown of where to find you online?
Yes, sir. So I'm not on YouTube yet, but
sorry.
Huh?
So sorry, we talked about that. I didn't mean to put it out there.
Yeah. No, but I'm on IG, at cyber.tommy. And then I have a website called cybertommy.com where I just blog, give, small tidbits. I'm actually trying to develop a repository of resources for people to use to take their Security Plus, because there are training out there that costs like thousands of dollars, and
way too much.
People don't have that, right? That's crazy. That's one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to cybersecurity, is that the cybersecurity education is just absurdly expensive. So I'm trying to build like a repository of just free and cheap resources that people can use. So head to my website and just check it out. Head to my IG, give me a follow, and yeah, man. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. We'll have it in the show notes below. Well, thank you, Thomas, so much for joining. I've been following you for quite some time. It's been great. Learned a lot.
Yes, sir.
And thank you, man. We'll catch you next time when you make it to the CISO spot.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You have a good one.
You too.
And that's a wrap. Thanks to everyone that made it this far. We appreciate you guys' support. Thanks again to Thomas for coming in and doing the first episode of Real Talk with us. As you mentioned in the podcast, all of the information will be in the show notes. You can find him at cyber.tommy on Instagram or cybertommy.com for all of his blogs. If you guys are interested in following us as well, you can find us on Instagram at The Cyber Club. That's TheCyberClub on Instagram. Please like and subscribe. We appreciate all that from you guys. We'll catch you guys next show. Have a good one.